Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2008. Oral history interview with Ralph Brown, starting momentarily. Okay, it's about 11:30, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit of your personal history background, and then I'll add some questions as we go along.
All right. I'm Howard Brown. I was born in Twin Falls, April 3rd, 1933. I'm 75 years old.
Okay, and your parents?
My dad was born in Bathsheba Springs, Tennessee in 1901. And
his name was?
Frank Edwin Brown, commonly known as Dabber. He got that nickname. My mother was born in Twin Payette in 1909, and that was Mildred Mankin.
Mankin. Can you spell that last name?
Mahnkenen.
Okay. Okay.
And she was raised in Twin Falls.
Twin Falls. Okay. When did they first come to the Sawtooth Valley? Do you know?
I would guess 1936.
Okay, 1936.
36 or 37. My dad was a trapper, and he'd been one most of his life.
Okay, did he come here for trapping purposes?
Correct, he did.
And did your mother and father both come here, or just your father?
My mother and father both came here.
Did they come and stay, or did they just come and visit?
No, they come and stayed. We stayed here I believe there was 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And then went back out, and then we came back in about 4 or 5 more times and stayed.
And where did they stay?
First place with Bob Bodenheimer's place. That would be straight across to the east in the Sawtooth hatchery.
Okay.
And the mouth of that draw, your cabin is on a ridge right on this side, and then you got the ridge coming down to Maddie, and that's where we stayed first. Next, Frake's place, commonly known as the Arrow A today.
The Arrow A today,
yes.
Correct. And you stayed there?
Yes, we lived there.
You lived there when the Frakes lived there, or?
No, Frakes owned the hotel.
Okay.
The one across from the Rod and Gun.
Right. Sawtooth.
They had that, and they lived up there. We lived at the Frakes place. And in fact, I had an encounter at the Frakes place with a bear. Myself. I went up to get a bucket of water. Went through the pole fence, started around the willow. There's the bear in the spring.
So, with the Frakes place, is that the first place that you lived as a child, or did you?
No, I was at the other place
actually
too.
Up there as well.
I vaguely remember.
Across from the hatchery.
Yeah.
And what age did you come to the valley? Twin Falls was home, and
Five.
then about 5 years old.
No, I can't say. I've lived in Twin Falls. I've lived in Salmon,
Okay.
over on the Persimmon. I lived in Soda Springs, but
You think you're about 5 years old when you came
when I
here?
came here the first time, yes.
Okay.
And then the next time, I would say we were here a couple 3 years, and then in about 38 or 9 we went out and then came back. That's when we came to the Frick's place, because
Okay.
they sold out. After that, I believe they went to Victor, Montana.
Your father, his nickname was
Dabber.
Dabber, and was he a government trapper or a?
At the time we were in here, at the earliest, yes, he was a government trapper. His boss was the outfit was called the Biological Survey.
Right, Biological Survey.
And his boss was Ben Evans. At that time, and I believe Evans lived in Cary, I think. Yeah, that's
Okay.
something I remember. But the first time, the first two, I'd say here, he worked for that, because he'd get called by people with bear problems and different things like that. The only bear problem he had was behind Maddie's, or in behind that boat and iron place.
Was he trapping wolves, coyotes, beaver, bear? What was he trapping the most, and what do you remember about that?
He was after coyotes, fox, mink, marten, bear, if required. And that is requested.
And requested.
Yeah, and a request. And he had 2 bear traps, and there is a remote chance that I am going to find those 2 traps. I've been looking for them for a number of years.
Those
And
were
they're going to come.
steel spring traps.
Well, one of them was a 75,
Okay.
and one of them was a 50.
Okay. What do you remember in that trapping? Did he ever talk about any of the exploits or any of the travels, or is there ever any talk of wolves or ever any talk of grizzly bears or anything like that?
Well, Gary, you and I go back a long ways, and I will say this about this valley, and I know this because my own knowledge. The wolves were never vacant from this valley.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about packs of wolves. I'm talking about a very few wolves.
Yes.
I have seen them myself. And in the area of Maze Creek, harrowing, McDonald,
Mm-hmm.
Yellow Belly, Pettit Lake area, I have seen the wolf. And that's before when they were supposed to be extinct.
Right, right. Was there ever any talk, do you recall ever any talk about them back in your early days?
Not really. At that time, they had pretty well been thinned out.
Mm-hmm.
The people here, I can't recall anybody talking about them.
Okay.
Because I'm not too sure the people wanted to keep them.
Right.
I think they wanted to keep them where they had and not make a big history of the wolf. But there were here. And in fact, one big male, and he was big. I've seen him in less than 40 yards.
Since we're speaking about the wildlife that you probably remember pretty well, tell us about any wildlife memories you have. Was there sage grouse? Was there big deer? Was there elk? Tell us about what you remember.
I don't remember elk. I mean, I'm talking about years ago. I'm not
Right,
talking about
exactly.
now. Years ago, there wasn't elk. There was never antelope either, which they're here now.
Right.
There was deer, mule deer. That's it. And there was some big deer in this valley. And they weren't hunted as like they are today.
There wasn't much hunting pressure there.
No, the pressure wasn't there. People didn't know about this country until later years. But no, there were special places you'd go get your deer.
Any special places you remember?
Yep. Across from Sawtooth Hatchery,
Across from the hatchery. Yeah.
down towards the bridge. Get over, get on one of those points, duck back, and watch between the road and the hill. That's the main. I'm not telling you news. You know what I'm talking about.
No, I just appreciate you telling those things because I was curious if there are any particular historic places that you recall. And
one of them, Peach Creek, late in the year. Slate Creek, late in the year. They migrate down, and then they come across. They go across that range down in.
They
and
migrated
work
down
around.
river.
They go down river in the Torrey Shoop area.
Did you do hunting with your father or anyone in your younger years? In
I've
this
been with
area?
them, yes. Pettit Lake area was one of the main ones.
Pettit Lake area.
Till the
Okay.
10th of October.
For deer until the 10th, but not after that?
They go bye-bye.
Yes, they certainly
They
do.
can move out. I don't care if it's just like this. They still move out.
That's right, they do. Okay, how about, since we're talking about animals and such, what do you remember about fish in this area? Did you ever go fishing? Was fishing a big deal?
Well, it wasn't a great sport in the summer because of the tributaries, the salmon, Lake Creek, Valley Creek were full of salmon. I mean, back then they were getting them with hands, gigs, anything they could get them with. They're the ones that came in here, and there was thousands of salmon. And then the redfish, of course. That stream run red with redfish.
Redfish Lake Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody fish on those redfish?
I can't recall it because I don't know. I think the people kind of had it at the time they had turned that color. They were no good. There was there was good fishing, better fishing elsewhere for better fish. One of the things is whitefish. They used to really go after those and smoke them and everything else. I don't know whether they still do or not.
Yes. So, whitefish. How about cutthroat trout or rainbow trout?
Yeah.
Remember anywhere
Yeah.
that was particularly interesting?
I remember one lake that they used to go to quite often. That was Stanley Lake.
Okay.
And remember that used to be pretty good fishing. In the early days, there used to be another lake below Alturas. I think it's called Perkins.
Perkins Lake.
And that thing in the spring of the year was awesome for fishing.
Was it for bull trout or for Dolly Varden? Do you remember? It was
Dolly Varden, I know. I'm not sure about the bull trout.
How big a fish do you remember?
No, of course you get them 8-10 inches long. That was a nice fish then. But you would get a big fish every now and then, and they weren't planted that much.
Right. Okay.
But probably I would say, like my dad, if he was quite a fisherman, the river.
Did he fish for salmon? Did your father fish for salmon? Okay.
They caught them with their hands. Back in those days, I don't know whether there was even a law on them or not, really.
And when you say those days, what era are you speaking
Oh, I'm
of?
talking back in the 40s,
In the 40s. Yeah.
30s and 39, 40, 41, and that era.
Did they make any outings for fishing? Did you go up into the hills at all with your father or?
Yeah,
family?
yeah. And a lot of the characters from down around Twin Falls come up and want to know where to go fishing. One of his pet was casinos.
Casino Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And there was some real fishing up there then. And I know the casinos, and then he liked the river because he'd get in there and he knew how to fish that river, and he'd get his limit, or he'd get what he would call his limit, enough for to eat. He never smoked very much except for the whitefish in the March. That's when they'd run in here.
Right. Well, since we're talking about fish and game, just a slight diversion. Do you remember any of the old game wardens being here or conservation officers being here?
I'm trying to think of one. It's before you. I can't remember his name. But I sicked him on to some bunch of Californians. If I remember right, the season in Bear Valley opened before this did.
Okay.
And they were coming in, going into Maze Creek. And get their elk sneaking. When they got on the road, they were legal.
Uh-huh.
And we let some certain people know about it, and they caught them.
Okay.
And that's been years ago,
Uh-huh.
but they did catch them.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. Your earliest recollections of coming up here. What was it like to travel? How did you travel? Did you come in the spring and leave in the fall, or did you come and live for the whole year? And if you did, let's talk about it.
Well, yeah, I lived, we would come in generally in the spring or summer, get lined up, and it's trapping's in the winter. It's not in
Yes,
it
is.
That's trapping's in the winter. There's one they call the Skyline. I'm looking at it. It's right behind you.
Okay. And what was it like to travel here from Twin Falls?
Well, back then, it was a very interesting trip, especially when you had Galena Summit.
What was Galena Summit like?
A nightmare.
Describe it.
Oh, I mean,
and what kind of a
switchbacks,
car? What did you travel in?
Oh, we had a Chevy, I think. 29 Chevy.
Uh-huh.
And you come over the road, and I remember a couple of things I've heard them talk about. They'd get a Model T, and they'd get to the top of the hill, and then they'd cut a lodgepole or a tree down top of the hill and drag it down the hill because the brakes wouldn't hold it.
To slow them down.
Yeah, to slow them down. That's the reason you find all the trees at the bottom of the hill.
Uh-huh.
But it was a nightmare road. And I do remember something else in later years. The road was beyond, it wasn't impassable. It was so rough you couldn't, I mean, you can't believe how bad that road was. Gravel.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I lived right over here at the Cawthorn place. I think it was a Cawthorn, it could have been Frakes, when they brought the pontoons in for the dredge.
Uh-huh.
Over at Galena.
So they brought them in over Galena. And when you say for the dredge, tell us which dredge you mean.
Yankee Fork Dredge.
Okay. And how'd they bring them in? You remember seeing it?
I've seen them come through here. They had, I don't remember what kind of trucks, old trucks, come down here to one pontoon. And at that, they were big. They were huge. And then you'd see them come down the river, and they'd go on down the river. And I would like to know to this day of how they got them over the summit, over those switchbacks. They had to be a steering axle under that pontoon that would steer into the corners or cable. So that's the only thing I could think of. And they'd take them down.
And that would have been in the late 30s, or was that much later? Because I don't have those dates.
I remember when I lived here. We lived here at Cawthorn, and we lived there at Frakes. It's the only two times we were down in here that I can remember. We either were at the Frakes or at Cawthorn.
And that would put it about what years?
Cawthorn would be in the 46 range.
Okay.
But then to be at the Frakes would be back in the 30s again. You're going to have to find out when that thing was brought in.
I think I have that information. I just wondered how your recollection was.
Well, my recollection, you'd seen them bringing them in.
Okay. Okay. So you came over from Twin Falls, and it was a rough trip, and you stayed at these various places. What was life like? What was it in the summer? What did you do in the fall? What did you do? What happened when you became school age? Let's just kind of move into.
Well, I was at the Frakes place, and I got come to school age, and we come across, and my dad had to come down and help me. And we come across the footbridge below the Frakes place. When you come out of the Frakes place, you come all the way along that hill over there, down to the Cawthorn place. You use the Cawthorn Bridge.
Okay.
That's what it was in. My dad was in on building the first bridge to the Frakes place, or the Arrow A. The Arrow.
And just to clarify, that's now the Niter Ranch, the Arrow A Ranch.
Used to be Fiddler.
It's been the Fiddler family, the Frakes family, and then downstream the Cawthorn. What's the Cawthorn's first name? Do you remember? That would be now where Ken Smith's place is, and it was also an old
All
hotel.
I know is I know him, Doc Cawthorn.
Doc Cawthorn. Okay, that's what we wanted.
And his wife's name was Effie, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
And they had a daughter, her name was Mildred. She married a packer. His name was Ward Hendricks. He packed seafoam.
Okay.
In fact, you're going to run onto him in that one.
Okay. So you would get across the footbridge and school. So it's a school day. So what tell us about that?
I went to the old school.
And that's the school before the Quonset hut.
That is, yes. I never went to Quonset hut.
Yeah, the Quonset hut came in about 47, so...
48.
48.
Because I was here in 46, 47.
Okay.
In fact, that one down at the, down here, I want to look at that one picture, because that says that's 47. I'll disagree with it. There's some people isn't in that. And I've got a magnifying glass. I'm going to see if they are in it, because I think I can still recognize them.
Okay. So tell us about school. Who do you remember was the first teacher that you had, and what was school like?
McMaster. Now I got to remember how many classes was in the one room. 6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe. I'm not sure. I mean, you may have to correct on that one.
Okay.
Then the other side was the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and it could have been the 4th and 5th in the other room. I remember that. And I've been in both rooms. The Maddie was my first one. Then when they lived at Pettit Lake, I stayed in Twin Falls.
Okay.
Because there's no way of getting back and forth to the school.
Right.
And teacher when I came back in here at the Cawthorn, his name was Hendricks.
Okay.
Wrong. Hedrick.
Okay.
And that went till Christmas. After that, he was removed from the school. And there was a lady came in. Her name was Croft, Mrs. Croft, and had us for the rest of the year.
Okay. Your school recollection, not necessarily the kids, but what was it? What was a school day like? I mean, for instance,
Well,
did you bring your lunch? Did you have to heat the place? Did they have
no,
chores?
okay, yeah, we brought our lunch when we were at the school until later years. They had a hot lunch program, and it was done by seems like the lady's name was June Terry, Sandra Terry's mother. Had the cafe up in Stanley.
Okay.
And we went down there and we'd have soup or something like that. And that was a real treat then.
Yes. How many kids were in a classroom typically?
That's a long time ago.
Oh, I know it.
I would say there wasn't over 30 in the whole.
In all the grades.
And all the ones on this side, and I don't know about the other side. I remember kids coming in the other side. Later years, Shaw's. David was one of them. Was one of the Shaw kids. That was Alden's son.
How about Alan Shaw or Butch Shaw?
I don't know who they were.
Okay.
I don't know. There was two of them about the same age, and that was Alden and Susie? Susan Shaw? I think it was. It was his wife. I can't remember exactly. But I believe they had two boys. Now there was other. Preston, I did have some more kids, because one of them was in here, but I don't remember who it was.
Okay. You remember how far some of the kids had to travel to school, or were they all from right in town?
No. It seems like at the two, they had two buses. Not buses, there were two limos. One of them went downriver, one of them went up. The one that went up, when I was in here, the Galena was not open.
Right.
The steel bridge up in the valley was the end of it. We had people coming out of McVeigh Place, and that was Owens's. There was three, I believe there was three. There was a boy, a girl, two boys, and a girl.
And they were coming out of which place?
McVeigh Place.
And which place is that?
The one on your same side as 4th of July Creek. It's the old ranch back up in the mouth of 4th of July Creek.
Okay.
I think you may have it as a new one, but that was the McVeigh Place. Most of the people came down. Now, I believe Claire and Mary at one time came down. Now, it would be Maddie's girls.
Okay.
And I think that the southern bus went to Torrey's. I think in the area of Torrey's, and that's it.
Well, that River Road must have been something.
Oh,
back
it was. It was. I remember who used to haul the mail.
Who did
Harry
that?
Fleming.
Harry Fleming hauled the mail.
Yeah, hauled the mail. I remember he lost it down there below Sunbeam. Went in the river, and it broke up pretty bad. And no, but I could say something about the limos because I have seen them in later years. They were in a wrecking yard in Jerome, and they were Packards.
Packards.
7-passenger limos.
And that's what they had for
That's
school
the buses. Hey, they worked.
So did you have sports at school or activities?
Not well. That hill over there by the school, we used that. We had toboggan runs down it, and that's mainly it. And skied or any kind of a winter, but there is no sports. It could be done. We had no place to do them.
Right. So you didn't have a ball field or anything like
No,
that? Really?
no, we didn't. No, and they had get-togethers and things like that
Well,
with the schools. And
so get-togethers. What did the community do for get-togethers? What do you remember? Any kind of activity or
they had
get-togethers?
some kind of a deal at the school for Halloween. And then they had a Christmas program, and they had a program in the schools themselves, and they'd get together, and it was a very fun place to live in the winter. It wasn't sit home and look at the snow.
So the school teacher that you remember the most was Maddie, and you said Maddie McMasters. Do you know
right.
what her husband's name, or did she have a husband? Or?
Yeah, her husband passed away. That's all I know. I don't know a lot about Maddie.
Okay.
I know her maiden name though, Jensen. She's from Kimberly.
Okay.
I
And-
don't know when she bought that ranch. It seems like it was in 20s or early 30s. But I remember reading something about that. Now this is research for you, Gary. Her and her husband bought that ranch for $750.
And that was the McMaster, not the Hanson.
That's correct. Well, that was, yes, it was the Hanson. But it was the McMaster Ranch. When Maddie married Cliff Hanson,
That was Chuck Hanson.
Chuck Hanson, well, that's where it turned into the Hanson Ranch.
Okay.
That was Maddie's place. And I was told when that recreation area bought her out for $750,000. That's what and it was always something. It was in the Twin Falls paper. I remember that, and it
Turned a handsome product. Profit.
She earned it.
Uh-huh.
That lady earned it.
And tell me how she earned it.
Well, over the years of keeping that thing together,
Okay.
her and 2 girls kept that together.
Her and 2 girls, they worked hard.
You know, my dad has helped them, and there was lots of people helped him. They all thought the world of Maddie.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, and I think the people that had the furniture factory helped too. I don't remember. I know about the furniture factory. I know where the majority of that furniture is too, in the valley.
And what furniture factory are you speaking
The
of?
one up along the river, up this side of Rocky Mountain Dude Ranch, over next to the river. There used to be a furniture factory there back in the 30s.
Oh, okay.
And they made it out of the small pine poles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald place.
McDonald's.
It was loaded with it.
Uh-huh.
Jim McDonald owned that and owned the guest ranch. The one down under the hill from Pettit.
Right. Right.
Clark Miller.
Clark Miller.
Clark Miller.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Now he owned both of those. And my understanding that he committed suicide.
Okay.
But he had the only car that would go over Galena Summit forward. I read that.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I've got the book if you want to read it. If you haven't got it, you better get it. I got the Galloping Ghost of Galena.
Oh, yes. Right. Yes.
You remember?
Yeah, got that.
You remember that Jim McDonald had one that would go over, because I knew Pearl Barber. She was a lady.
And who is that now again?
Pearl Barber owned the Galena store.
Oh, the girl, Galena Star. Okay, yes.
I remember her.
Okay, now that brings up another thing with it when you say Galena Store. Let's talk about home and the store and what was family like and how did you get groceries and
Well, we had 2 grocery stores in the later years. One uptown,
what was it called?
Stanley Merck. No. There was 3. There was a Merck. Was it Gregory's?
Gregory
later
Store.
year.
Okay, yeah.
And then the one at Markle's.
Markle's Store, right.
And Savage.
And
Somebody
to
by the
the
name of
Savage.
Savage got a hold of that.
Savage got a hold of the Markle Store, correct?
And then Markle came back and took it back. Got it back. I don't know whether they repoed it or what they did, but anyway, Floyd Markle
Right.
got it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
let's talk about the legend. John and Mary, Rockavina,
Okay.
Casino Club.
Mm-hmm.
She was quite a lady. They were quite the people.
Mary Rukavina.
Mary and John.
Tell us about them.
Well, I know they had a big cat, and a big one, bigger than what Fritzy, and he'd sleep on the bar. And you'd go in there, and there would be Mary and the cat, and that cat was huge. I remember that. And remember they ran a wreck up here. I think they ran in the river
Okay.
up above town here. But oh yeah, I remember 'em.
Was that bar a rowdy place or was it
No.
a gathering
John and-
place?
Kind of a gathering place in the winter. Nothing else was open.
Well, now wasn't that right next door to the Four Aces Club?
There was no Four Aces Club.
Okay.
It's called the Ace of Diamonds.
Ace of Diamonds. That's right.
That was a dance hall.
There you go.
No, I remember that. Then across the street was a service station. That was one of the original service stations. And Juggy Niece ran that service station. The old hand pump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In fact, someplace it's in the Galloping Ghost, I think.
Right.
That picture of that station. And the old timers here. Suze Vaughn.
Who is that and what would it was their
Suze
position?
Vaughn was, I don't know what she was, but she was the character.
Oh.
And she did not like Preston Shaw. Now this is between us. Somebody asked, my dad was standing there when they asked to find Preston Shaw. He says, you go down on the main street and you walk down there and you find somebody with, Janet ought to remember this one, accordion pleated boots, choke bore breeches, and a bastard hat. That's Preston Shaw. That was Suze.
Now-
Suze was a nurse, if I remember correctly. She was kind of a medical, if something happened, that's who everybody went to.
Okay.
Was her husband named Russ Vaughn?
Russell Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You mentioned Juggy Niece's service station. That was before Preston Shaw's or at the same time?
Oh, he had pumps over there, but there was one under the hill. And Glenn Vaught ran it. No. Glenn was...
Jason Vaught.
Jason Vaught
Jason
ran
Vaught.
it. His brother lived in Lower Town, was around here, but that was Glenn. And he had a son by the name of Pete. Pete died of cancer. This is a known place to die of cancer. Lung cancer.
Hmm.
And I know why.
Why do you think?
I don't think I know. Back then it got so cold this country here don't know what cold's all about now. I remember when I was over here at Cawthorn's, 55 below at Stanley. Later on, I talked to Dale. Dale brought his wife out. She had to get her out of here, and he had this station. Ira Wells had the station. He bought it from Preston. I mean, not Preston, but
From Jason Vaught.
Jason Vaught.
Okay.
And he was lived down there, and Dale brought his wife out, and it went to 68 below at Phillips and Williamson's.
At where?
Williamson's,
Okay.
up valley.
Okay.
Well, you can figure from here, 55 below. You figure from Stanley at 30. You got 20 degrees difference between there, the upper end of the valley, or bull trout.
When it was cold like that, what did that do to the community? What was it like?
Nothing. It was cold, but it's a dry cold, and it's a different cold. It's a different world than people out there know. It's you do what you want to do.
Did you still have school when it was cold?
Yes, we did. They didn't close the school because it was snowing. And you get a whiteout, we still had the school. Very seldom you'd ever find that school shut down for any reason. Because these people are used to this. Down in the flatland, they're not.
So when it was cold, how cold was it in the house? What did you do to stay warm in the house?
Build a fire. I'm not dumb. I'll build a fire in the stove.
Did you go through a lot of wood?
Yeah, we had old pot-bellied stoves and not the modern things today.
How much wood did you remember they put in? A lot?
That's a good question, Gary. I wouldn't say then. I'd say at least 5 cord.
Didn't have chainsaws either. How did
No,
they,
crosscut saws. Crosscut saw in the Model A truck. The biggest man in this valley that cut wood was Lanier.
Which Lanier?
Barney.
Barney Lanier.
Barney Lanier and his Model A. I and his oldest son, which would be no, it wasn't Frank. Melvin, no. Wayne. Went up to Redfish. And this is before the snow. We had to get the tractor out of there. Now the tractor with his sawmill was a McCormick Deering. The one that's set out here towards Howdyville, I think that's it.
Oh, okay.
And that was running. We went up there and brought it down. The luck wheel tractor, now that's on the old road. We brought it down, and you don't know anything about being a game warden, but I and Wayne got into a bunch of fool hands right down there by the bridge at Redfish coming out. We got 5 of them.
Uh-huh.
Delicious.
And did you get him with the gun, or did you get him with a rock or a stick, or?
We got them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But, you know, it's a wonder we didn't get shot. I don't think there was any game wardens in here then because we were picking the feathers and throwing them out over the back of the tractor coming down the highway. But there's no traffic.
Uh-huh.
No traffic, but I remember that.
Uh-huh.
But as far as, that's the only thing, and I remember that was really shaky. Dad says, "You did what?" We got food. Barney lived, okay, you want to know where he lived? He lived in the old hotel. The old hotel.
Now, do you mean
down across the
Benner?
Down across the
Crick?
Yes.
The Benner Hotel.
The old Banner Hotel.
Okay.
And that's the only one. I don't know how many kids he had, but he had enough to fill it.
Okay.
Now, you talk about staying warm. That's the one I've always questioned. And he cut wood. He had an old short wheelbase Model A truck.
How far did they travel out to cut wood?
Oh, you didn't have to go very far. He was up to Redfish and a few miles. And I'd like to know what it sold for then. I can't remember.
Hmm.
But then he had this old tractor and he get the belt on it and get that old sawmill going, or the old saw, and then you start buzzing them up. There was 2 or 3 saws around the valley. One of them
Okay.
was a Pettit.
So it went through a lot of wood to keep warm in the winter.
Yeah.
Were most of the houses log homes or were they lumber homes?
No, they were mostly log at that time. In fact, I would say 90% of them were, because they didn't have the lumber. There was 2 sawmills in this valley. I know the people that ran them both.
And they didn't have electricity, did they?
No, we had dynamos. Well, that's what they call a dynamo. It battery charge, and then it would automatically start and keep the batteries up. That's what was there at these places. We had no electricity in this whole damn town.
So you didn't have electricity, so gosh, when it got dark in the evenings,
You had kerosene lantern. You had battery
okay. And
radios.
You had radios. Was radio a big thing?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Would it'd be nice to be up here television now, but no.
So how about refrigeration?
Ice.
What was it like? What did your mother, for instance, have to do for keeping produce, keeping meat?
Ice house. Well, you had an ice house.
Did everybody have an
Commercial
ice house? Or
I'm not sure about that, Gary. The only 2 I know is the one down here, but the big one was down at the station at Jason's. And that house that they built down there, that they put together down there, that Wells put together and lived in, was an old ice house. They'd bring it down by sled from Redfish. They cut it out of Redfish and bring it down here.
did they
And you
cut
could go
it?
down. You could go down and buy it.
Did they take and buy ice from the service station, take it to their home?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
each
you
home,
could.
each home had kind of an ice house.
Had
type
an
of
old ice box or something like that.
thing? Okay.
And of course your nights get cool enough to keep stuff down a little bit. But as far as the modern stuff, no. It'd be pretty nice to live here now. It'd be a lot better.
So when you were young, did you have playmates or brothers, sisters, or
No.
friends? What did you have for
I'm an only
activities?
child.
You're an only child. So what did you do for activity as a child?
You make your own activities. You make your own activity. You fish. You do. Like I lived at Pettit Lake, we'd fish out there in the lake, or we'd swim in the lake in the summers, and there was always something. You make your own. You just go do your thing. You make your own. You don't have to have the thing to play with.
Okay. And you mentioned living out at Pettit Lake. Tell us about that.
Well, that was a nice place, because those places were all very nice, but the pump house was not. Every one of those had water in them, way back in the 30s, because they had their own pump. They had their own mag engine on a pump out of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. You got water out of the lake at that time, and there was no one else over there. No one was in. The only place that was in, the big lodge, as you go into Pettit Lake. That wasn't finished. The one end of that house was finished, and that's where we lived.
Now, when you're describing living at Pettit Lake, do you mean near the Brooks place, or
Lived at the Brooks place.
At the
It was
Brooks
called the
place.
McDonald place.
McDonald place? Okay, and that's out on the point.
Well, that's around to the right.
Right, exactly.
Go out to the point, yes.
Yes. Okay.
And then my dad, of course, I told you, built the Lark. Him and Bill Lark built it, and Bill took caretaker, and him and my dad cut the snow off the roofs and of the houses there. And they both lived in there, and Mother lived there too. And they lived at McDonald Place, and Bill lived in the Lark.
So did you winter? Did they winter at the McDonald place at Pettit Lake?
Correct.
That's a lot more winter there than it is in Stanley.
Correct.
You have any memories of that?
I don't. I wasn't in here. I didn't stay there in the winter. I was in later years in school, so I stayed in Twin Falls.
So you stayed in Twin Falls. Now, did your mother stay in Twin Falls with you?
No. I stayed with my grandparents.
Okay. Okay. And what years would have that been when they were staying at Pettit?
40, 39, oh, wow, wait a minute. Well, 40, 41, 42, in that area.
Okay.
And then we went out and came in here in 45 or 46. And we left here the last time in 40. My granddad died July 3rd in 1947. He's the one that'll be on this. And we went out of Stanley then.
Okay, and that's when the family moved out of Stanley.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I've came back a lot.
Absolutely, understand. When you were living here and pretty much from year to year in the late 30s and into the 40s, what do you remember as being the big industry or the big activity here for people to make a living? What did most people do?
Well, there was only one activity. That was what you could pick up from tourists that did come in on the salmon fishing in the summer in their highway department. Just about it. I mean, there wasn't any big industry here. They had a few stores and they had some little ranches in here, of course. A lot of those people came into town to winter. Harry Fleming came in, Merritt's came in. They all lived here in town, and mostly in Upper Stanley. And that's.
So did cattle and horses winter over here?
No, she says, no, they took them out.
Took them out. Okay.
Doc Cawthorn's went to Chalice, and a lot of them went out to Twin Falls, Gooding. I knew one of the biggest sheepmen years ago in here. He was a good friend. J.W. Bill Newman. He owned Decker Flats. He owned Maze Creek Meadows. He owned that whole mess one time. And I don't know who owns it now.
So the one of the biggest sheep herders you recall was J.W. Newman.
J.W. Bill Newman and Flat Top. I believe that was Peavy. I think was out of Cary, I think. Then there was another one they called, his name was Clyde Bacon. He was in here too.
Okay.
There was quite a few sheep people in here. But in the summer, they were in here.
Do you remember the Forest Service being active in the area?
Yes. I knew two of the rangers, Charlie Langer Peak.
Mm-hmm.
That they went in looking for a B-17. They crashed a B-25 under there and killed him. And the ranger that took over behind him was Roland. Ranger Roland. We lived over at the, and every time he would go out to do anything, he had a stuffed-tailed cat that wasn't worth a hoot, and he'd bring it over. We'd have to babysit the cat. His name was Stumpy.
Uh-huh.
He's crazy.
Okay, and that ranger station was basically just across the river from.
Yeah, that's about a Creek
Cawthorn
Ranger
place.
Station. There was two ranger stations. One of them was not manned. 4th of July.
So in the
And
winter
that
it
was Barry. Ranger Barry, I believe.
okay.
And then this one down here was manned all the time.
Yeah.
There was somebody here. Langer had a family. Roland didn't.
So do you remember the plunge or the hot springs?
Valley Creek Plunge right over there. That they tore it down. Yeah, we can go in there all winter.
You went there.
Mm-hmm. Somebody, some place around here, now I don't know who did it, somebody put a stove in one of the dressing rooms. I'm not sure it wasn't over at the ranger station. And they'd take and put it over there, and you'd take your own wood. Build a fire in that thing, it was nice and warm, you get out, but it didn't take long to get up those steps and into that dressing room when it's 30 below zero.
Right.
I remember one thing out here, when it gets past 40, you know exactly when it gets past 40.
Why is that?
You can hear the logs going off from the pole fences, like shotguns.
You hear them cracking.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's about it, except for one thing. I told you my dad helped build a bridge across to the Arrow A.
Mm-hmm.
Poles came out of that canyon right over there.
Just behind the arrowway.
Yeah, right back up in there,
Mm-hmm.
toward Sunny Gulch.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad was one of them bringing them out, and they had a kind of like a front tongues, a wagon, but they just had that wagon, and they'd get the poles up on the bridge poles up on the front of it, and they'd drag them, but they were on the wheels in the front, and then they'd drag them down, because that whole thing over there is a marsh. You couldn't get them across it, so they'd come down there, and then they had to take, when they put the road down there, they put poles under the road, because you might lose the Model T in that one.
Uh-huh.
But that's it. I remember. There's a lot of things on there. There's things I will remember.
Okay, speaking of remember, there's a photograph that you showed me of your father with the coyotes. Can you talk about that? Do you remember him doing a lot of trapping?
Yes, my dad trapped for years.
Did they make a living off of those traps and trapping?
Yes,
did he make a good living?
Yes, because even during the Depression, the pelts were worth something. He got one fox out of here that was a prize Silver Cross. I've seen another one in here. I saw one up Maze Creek one time. And yes, pelts were worth $25, $30 each. Back when you couldn't get nothing for anything.
Right.
And then he had his other. Now that's when he was a government trapper, I'll finish that one real easy, because they kept their pelts. Today, a government trapper turns his pelts in, puts them, dries them, turns them in, puts them, and they go to, I believe, Ogden. I think it's where they would be bid out there and they sold.
Right.
Well, that was part of the living of a government trapper. He kept his pelts and was able to sell his pelts at his own. Of course, they have a record of it.
Back when your father, Frank Brown, was trapping, do you recall Trapper Fisher or Trapper Green?
I remember Trapper Fisher myself. There's old Grandpa Fisher. Mm-hmm. Lived out across the meadow. It's been years and years ago. He was, oh my God, I don't know what he was, just 100 when he died, I think. But yes, I do. I've heard it. I know of him. I know of Green. But I knew Trapper Fisher. In fact, we've gone out to Trapper Fisher's.
Trapper Fisher,
I think was a friend of his.
Do you remember him being an interesting character?
Oh, was he a character? If I remember right, he's the one that every time they'd get something going to Stanley, he played the fiddle. That's him. And I remember he was pretty good at it, too. Then there was that Bill Love. I remember a little about him, but I don't know much.
Okay.
And my understanding, he was crazier than a pet coon.
Uh-huh. So,
by the way, my dad quit the trapping for the U.S. government when they were trying to force poison.
uh-huh.
And the government was forcing the poison.
Okay.
So that's when he split with the government and went on his own as a trapper. He went on beyond that as a trapper.
When he was living here, trapping obviously wasn't a full-time thing. Most of the trapping was in the winter. What did he do the rest of the year? Do you recall?
Well, I think he worked for Lee over there. He worked
Lee who?
in Agnes Frakes.
Okay.
And he worked for them, and in maintenance and stuff like that, and he made some money caretaker as the McDonald place, and then he'd do odd jobs summer.
You speak really, really well of your father. And I'm wondering about your mom. There must have been some pretty hard times for a woman here. What was it like for
She
your
loved
mom?
it. She loved it up here. This is a different world than, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a different world. And why does your wife want to be here? Because she loves it, and my mother loved it here.
Do you remember her cooking for the family? Do you remember getting up early? Because obviously there was wood stove cooking. There was when your father was a trapper, he was out and going a lot. So what was it like for your mom?
Well, he was gone, but he was on horseback when he could, and on snowshoes, back up in the high country. And no, he would generally gone. He wouldn't be gone that much.
Okay. Okay.
Because one of the pet ones for coyotes is right there at Sawtooth Hatchery. That's a warm slough.
Mm-hmm.
Generally don't have the snow. And that's, somebody had a animal die, that's where they take it.
Sure.
In the winter, that's where the traps are set, that's where they catch them.
So tell me, if it was coming on winter, what about something like Thanksgiving or Christmas? What were seasons like that?
Most of the time we'd go out at Christmas. We'd stay in here, and Thanksgiving we'd go out for Christmas. You go down to Clayton, go up, turn and go up East Fork, and go out through Spar Canyon. That was the fastest way out. You couldn't get out the other way.
Right.
I remember one year that you could go over the summit on the old road in February.
Over Galena Summit, 1 year.
You didn't
That
get any
must have
snow.
been a real drought
Well,
year.
the first part of the year, no, we weren't getting anything. And all of a sudden, hell tore loose then. They got about 6 feet of snow in 2 weeks. About the middle of February, 1st February, you could drive over Galena Summit. We went over Galena Summit.
Speaking of snow depths, what was the snow depths that you remember, say, in Stanley at either of the places you lived versus the snow up
Stanley don't have it. Stanley's not known for its snow.
How about Pettit Lake?
Let's not talk about Pettit Lake, because it gets, 5 to 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
If Stanley has got 2.5 to 3 feet, it's got snow.
Right.
I mean, half the time you couldn't go over there and ski on the hill because you run into sagebrush. But that one year, I remember getting up there and being able to go down
Tobogganing and skiing on
the hill, right
on the
over
hill,
there.
right behind town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but Stanley is the low spot of this whole valley and doesn't get the snow. You go to Pettit, Alturas, and go to Bull Trout. You've got 20 degrees difference, and you've got 3 times the snow. The snow gets in there, across these peaks, does not hit. When you go through that gap up there, it starts building up the valley.
So the winters were cold and harsh, and home life had to be pretty tough, pretty harsh in the winter. But they still got plenty of groceries in here. There wasn't ever any issues that way.
No.
Of course, you ate game meat, right?
Well, we had game. The stores were open. You had 2 stores open and sometimes 3. This one over here.
But somebody had to
I think
be.
Savage got into that store too.
Somebody had to be trucking stuff in.
Yeah, they were trucking stuff in. And by the way, in the summer, there used to be a guy coming here in an old Ford truck with produce. He come down to all these places, and everybody looked forward to him.
Uh-huh.
Show up.
So if they brought supplies in the winter, that was coming up the river.
That was coming up the river. That would come in from Chalice, yes.
Uh-huh.
Now I can come in from anywhere. if it's open, if Galena, I would say 9 shots out of 10 will come in from Galena. Because if that big if that meat outfit out of Boise's coming through, I think they're coming in down below here. They're coming on over to Galena.
Well, we have here a shopping list that appears to be from 1941. Can you tell me? Can you tell me about that?
Well, what do you want to know about it?
Whose shopping list was it?
That was my mother and dad's, and at this time they lived at Pettit Lake. And this was September 1st, 1941.
And September 1st, 1941, they went shopping, and were they shopping for a few weeks, a few days, a few months?
Well,
what were they shopping
they went
for?
It's time to get the stuff for the winter. They went to the store at Haley, and at that time they borrowed my grandfather's old Model A truck. It was a long wheelbase truck. And then, of course, in September and October, they'd bring their groceries in. They'd go out there shopping, they'd get them, load them on the truck, bring them in. Pettit Lake, they had lots of good storage. Well, they had storage in every place up here. Then they'd use the truck with their crosscut saws to get the wood. A couple would generally go together with a crosscut, get the wood, bring it in, and stack it. In fact, they put it in the shed or inside, like everyone else does now.
Mm-hmm. So when a shopping trip like that was probably a pretty big thing. Did the whole family go?
You could, yes. But you remember, I'd say it'd probably take, to do that, probably take 2 to 3 days of doing that. And this one here, I believe that the total on this thing for the winter is on it. Okay, this page here of all the food was $83.40. This one was $50.98, and this one was $16. So we're not.
That was for the winter supply.
That's for the winter supply. Now, if you want to get into something, try to redo it today. My daughter did. We have the list that she did. When did Lisa do that, Janet?
A year or so?
Huh?
Was it a year or so? Was it longer than that?
Where was she at? In Hillside?
I think so.
She was in Hillside Junior High School. Lisa's 40, what? 3? No. And she did a list on that thing, and I mean, you don't want to hear it. And another thing, it took a truck to haul that. If you go down there and get that much and pay that much in food today, you'll haul it in the trunk of your 41 Studebaker. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I see on the list of groceries there was extras, and there was even dog meat, and there was crab meat and olives. That's pretty fancy living, but the prices were mighty low compared to what they are now. That's a very interesting shopping
6
list.
cents.
Yeah.
Now, shall I tell him what dog meat is?
Tell me.
Men's stand. That's what we call it, is dog meat.
It's what now?
Men's stand.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
Well, no, but I used to walk right across where that motel is, going to school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I believe that picture right there is taken below Pettit Lake.
Yeah, that's very nice. What about these videos, just as an addendum? Tell me about the videos here.
The videos, my granddad made them up, Here comes a skunk car. Damn fishing game. But anyhow, my
Your grandfather made these videos up,
Okay.
and
They made them in 41, and they start like they're taking their guns and stuff out of a big cardboard box.
okay,
And the car that they drove up here that year was a 36 Pontiac.
okay,
And it's in black and white. It's in they're loading in Twin Falls. Now
come on in.
my grandfather might be of interest. My grandfather was superintendent of mail in Twin Falls post office. He was, and when he did that, he would get money.
Hmm.
Another voucher when he got sick that the postmaster would bring to him to have him sign it. No one knew what that second voucher for pay was. By the way, he had been on the retirement system for 3 days when he died.
Okay, well, that's
And anyhow, but that wasn't it. After he died, the postmaster came down after about 6 months and told what the second voucher was.
what was it?
Undercover agent for the FBI and the post office in Twin Falls.
Oh, okay. Well, so these hunting videos from 1941.
Howard Brown.
Merritt Horseman. Nice to meet you.
Those hunting videos from 1941. That was
You,
right.
both of you is going to kick it. I used to live here.
Yeah.
And I used to work for this chicken shit outfit. Department of Stupidity.
The hunting
No.
videos, just to get back to them for just a second, those were done right up here in the Sawtooth Valley?
No.
Or
Oh,
where? That's
okay,
what-
let me tell you about the hunting videos. That would answer. It's going to tell you on there where it's going.
Okay, okay.
They come out of Twin Falls. They come up to catch them and got something to eat. And, there goes a fish and game tanker. I'll be damned. That's what I did with fish and game.
Oh yeah.
Run tanker. But anyhow, they come on over the summit and they go up to Pettit Lake.
Pettit Lake, okay.
That's where we live. And they were there. That's when you're going to see this hunter that's going to show up.
Okay.
If anybody can identify him, it'd be a very great interest.
But they hunted in the Pettit Lake area then?
They hunt behind there,
Okay.
Donald Peak.
Donald, okay.
And my dad was the guy who took him back there, and they had some kind of a permit on a goat. And this was in 41, probably the fall of 41, in October, and they got the goat. And the goat will be on there.
Okay, okay.
But so I don't know. Now I'm not sure whether he's still with the government or not. My dad. So, but anyway, it was totally legal. I got a fish cop here now. So
Okay.
no, but that's it. But then okay. Now they come down here. They go over to Juggies and fill the Pontiac up with gas. They go from here to Seafoam. Over Vanity.
Mm-hmm.
Shows them going over Vanity down to Seafoam. That's when they met Ward Hendricks. That was a packer.
Ward Hendricks was a packer.
And then they went down, well, you're going to find out, going down Rapid River into Mahoney Creek and all down through there. And this will be that hunt with the 3 people. And by the way, the packer is Ward Hendricks. That'd be Doc Cawthorn's son-in-law. Jason Vought's son is the wrangler.
Oh, okay.
That's Pete.
Pete.
Pete died later on,
Mm-hmm.
and I never told you the rest of that story.
Well, you think that you said they were a lot of folks getting cancer. You think it was from wood smoke or being closed in, or what? What do you think?
Getting out here, and they did get a least bit excited, and it was cold. It's a lot colder than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Frost in their lungs.
Oh.
That's my opinion. because Dale died of cancer of the lungs.
Dale who?
Dale Wells. On the station under the hill.
Okay.
In fact, I think he's buried behind you here.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of them that died of cancer. And that was always my question. My mother said that same thing, question of why the people that die here. And
Okay.
out cutting wood, getting something like that.
Uh-huh.
And that'd do it. But I lived here a lot of years. But anyway, all that going back to the film, you're going to find out. Stop. There are going to be lots of pictures and stuff in there.
Okay. Okay. And who made that video?
My grandfather,
Your grandfather.
Henry Mankin.
And who all is pictured in that?
Henry Mankin, Bill McDonald, and Manny Hensley is the three people plus the Packers.
Okay. Okay. And the McDonald, is that the McDonald from?
No.
Okay, it's a different McDonald.
That's
okay.
another. These were all three out of the post office of Twin Falls.
Okay. Okay.
And it's going to tell you everything about where they're at, what they're doing. Now, let's go back to somebody that in this valley, it's a legend. How about Snowshoe Thompson? I knew him.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's what Thompson Peak is named after. Snowshoe
Correct.
Thompson. Yeah.
His name was John Thompson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His wife, oh God, I'd like to remember her name. I think it seems like it was Isabel. They lived up there.
Where they live?
They lived where you call Thompson Creek now.
Okay.
Off of Valley Creek.
Okay.
They lived in that big house. The old saying, you could live down here in the winter, you would hear the traces on the team rattle when he was feed his stock. He kept stock down here in the winter
Uh-huh.
from that length. Cold, cold mornings.
Hmm.
But he is, and I will argue with a lot of people, he is Snowshoe Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
He came here from, my understanding, he was in Alaska, and he came here. He hauled mail from Bonanza to Rio Grande on snowshoes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I remember when John died. I went with my granddad. I was a little kid then, over to Haley. I believe John is buried in Haley. I don't think he's here. I think he's in it, and his wife is buried in Chalice.
Ah, okay. Okay.
But that was John Thompson. He was a legend. He really was. He was the grandest guy I ever
You think
saw.
he died about when?
38. I'm going to say 38.
Okay.
If you're down at Ketchum or down at Haley, go in the cemetery and see if you can find his grave.
Uh-huh.
John Thompson.
Well, just one last thing that I would like to ask is for you to recap a little bit about this rifle that you have here.
Go take a look at that one.
That's an old one. See?
That's an Indian trade gun. It's a real one. Okay, that gun was found in 1892, in the fall of 1892, by my grandfather and my great-grandfather.
And you found it where, approximately?
Trapper Creek out of Oakley.
Okay.
Now, about 2 years before, I understand there has been a Indian found demise leaning against a tree there. Well, they never found the gun. If you notice, there's 3 axe prints in that gun where it's been hit. It's in the forks of a tree down there. And that's basically the gun. The gun was intact. It has been fired since.
You said it was found in the crook of a tree. How was
Juniper.
it? In
Juniper tree. They're cut juniper posts.
Was it in a scabbard? Was it wrapped up?
No,
How was it?
It was in a rawhide.
It was in
The
rawhide.
typical Indian gun.
Okay.
And it was fired. That's the reason the ramrod's gone. John, that was my grandfather's brother, cut down with it and forgot to take the ramrod out and shot a willow pile down. So.
Mhm.
But that's it.
And it's been in your family ever since.
It's been. I've had it since 1947. We had the deal that holds the flint and the trigger guard. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
When I am not going to get into it, but when my granddad died in 47, a lot of stuff disappeared, and we think that went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, at this time, when you're recording it, I am going to leave the gun here for you guys.
Well, that's a
And
real treasure to have an actual Indian trade gun. And do you know what caliber it is?
Big.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It is, I don't know, I was told 12. I mean, that's in that, in the bore, I'd say that's, I don't know whether it'd be a 12 or 20.
Well, it's in the 50 plus caliber.
Yeah,
range.
50.
Plus. Yeah.
Well, there's a one that's a 70. Remember?
Mhm.
Now that's a flintlock. That is
Right,
not
right,
a muzzleloader.
right.
That
I
is a
understand.
flintlock.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave the gun here. It is to stay at Stanley. It is. I can't give it to you, but I'm going to put it in this museum because of what I think of the museum up here and what I think of you guys.
Well,
And I'd rather have it in a museum where it can be seen. Boise is not to get that gun. Under no circumstance, if they try anything, revert it back to me.
yes.
They want this gun bad.
So, do you have any other little items you'd like to add? And otherwise,
Well, I've got a plane out there. We put that on the same thing. That was my granddad's, and
That block plane was your grandfather's.
yes, and was my great grandfather's.
Great grandfather.
And the
spring,
scale,
the spring scale.
the scale was his. He was a blacksmith in Oakley
Okay.
in the early days. By the way, he'd go collect his bills every month with a wagon spoke. I've heard of people tell me that. So. But I think the gun has not got a value. I mean, it is very rare. It is a collector's gun, but it's the value of it. In fact, this came from Cabela's. They say the value is the family.
Absolutely.
What the family's
It's called priceless to the family.
Yeah.
That's
But this thing here, I've threatened it. By the way, this is my daughter Janet, and I've been threatening to bring it in here, and I think it's a damn well safer up here than it is in Boise.
okay.
And it might be that we get mad one of these days and bring the other one up. And that gun's worth nothing but money. It's worth the value. Between $4,000 and $5,000.
Well, that's the one that you're saying is
Here it
in
is.
this photograph. And the person in that photograph is your
That's my dad.
father.
That gun there is a model 4063, actually. 253,000 Savage bolt action. It's not. I've seen two of them.
And it was used for what and when? You mentioned that to me before.
He went after. Well, the gun was originally built by Savage as a sniper rifle for the Army.
Okay.
And it was built in 1924. It's not as old as you think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, from here, you could take that thing and sit down right here and take every tire off that van and stuff over there. That thing drives nails at 200 to 300 yards.
Okay.
That's one of the deadliest guns I've ever seen. And it's up to you guys and your deal. I will help you in this endeavor you're doing with this any way I can.
Okay, thank you very much.
but I'm busting my vest. So I'm the guy who turned out a lover. So I'm the guy who laughed at those blue diamond rings. One of those things, oh, look at me now. Oh, look at me now. You better look at me now.
This is the one moment that I never thought I could live through. But now somehow that it's here, my dear, that foolish fear disappears, and saying goodbye seems sweet. It's plain that fate didn't want us on a one-way street. Don't worry about me, I'll get along. Forget about me, be happy, my love. Let's say that our little show is over, and so the story ends. Why not call it a day, the sensible way, and still be friends? Look out for yourself, should always be the rule. Give your heart and your love to whomever you love. Don't be a fool. Baby, why should we cling to some fading thing that used to be? If you can't forget, don't you worry about me.
Thank you.